Nancy Partica. I'm with the Mobile Bay National Estuary Program. I'm an extension specialist or a professor of extension at Auburn University. I wear a couple different hats, and some of you guys know me in those different hats. I'm also associated with Mississippi Alabama Sea Grant Consortium. I was a member of the Oil Spill Science Outreach Team. As an extension specialist, I have a lot of opportunities to work in a lot of different areas, and that's kind of how I encountered working at the NEP. I was a member of the Science Advisory Committee that I'm going to talk to you about today as well. And from there, it became clear that, Roberta and I were doing a lot of interacting and working together on some subcommittees and different projects. And that's when she approached me about actually starting to work with the NEP more closely. And so I spend half of my time working on projects associated with the NEP. So that's me. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the NEP. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the National Estuary Programs in general, or the Mobile Bay NEP specifically, the NEPs in general were created after 1987, after the Clean Water Act. The Mobile Bay NEP came about in 1995 following a detailed campaign and effort and a subsequent management conference convening, basically recognizing the value that the Mobile Bay area, its associated estuary, its surrounding habitats and streams and rivers provide to Alabama and the region in general. It is one of 28 existing place-based NEPs within the United States. All of those NEPs are guided by comprehensive conservation management plans that help guide their different actions and activities. Those CCMPs, as they're called, are updated on a 5-year cycle. So that's one of the reasons I'm talking to you today. We're coming up to the beginning of our new 5-year cycle. And that means that we've got some heavy lifting to do at the NEP. So as I mentioned, the NEP is governed underneath what is called a management conference. And that management conference that has a couple of co-chairs, one of them is the Region 4 Director for the EPA, but also the ADCNR Commissioner, Chris Blankenship, which some of you guys know. And then there's a number of different committees that exist underneath that management conference. You can see them all listed here. I'm going to be talking mostly about the Science Advisory Committee because that's who I'm the lead of at the NEP. But just know that the Science Advisory Committee interacts with all these other committees in order to help provide that scientific basis and guidance in order for some of the different policy actions that take place within the NEP. So our job within the Science Advisory Committee is to really look at the ecosystem status and trends within the Mobile Bay area and the 2 coastal counties of Alabama, looking at those different stresses and impacts that are happening to our valuable resources and habitats, helping to develop a monitoring framework and the protocols that are associated with those, identifying different data gaps and needs that might be out there in order to reach those priorities of the NEP, and then providing that science-based decision support tool for the different committees as I've expressed. But all of that connection is meant to come back and really feed into what the comprehensive conservation management plan and we as members of our community down here care about, what the people care about. And those are the values that we have in these different resources. So you can see these 6 key values that are here, they pop up throughout our comprehensive conservation management plan, which can be found online, and I'll direct you to that later on. But these are the things that we are talking about that people actually care about. So it's one thing to have a monitoring plan in place. It's another thing to say it's guided by science. But at the end of the day, we have to have these so what moments for people to come back and say, great, you're doing a lot of great science, or you've restored this area of marsh, or you're working on this particular habitat. So what? What does that mean to me? These are the things I care about. So that's something that we're constantly using as a touch point and a guidance as we're moving through these different action, policy, and management decisions. You guys live down here. I'm not sure how many of you have lived down here for a very long time, but Mobile Bay sits at the very bottom of a vast and vast watershed. You might not be aware of it, but Mobile Bay is the 6th largest by area, or the Mobile Bay watershed is the 6th largest by area and 4th largest by volume within the United States, drains down into Mobile Bay, and those 5 rivers that come into the head of Mobile Bay form the second largest intact river delta within the US. This network of rivers and streams form a vast array of complex habitats and resources. It's one of the reasons it's called America's Amazon. So zooming in here where we're at, that area outlined in brown is the area that is the coverage map for the Mobile Bay National Estuary Program. And a huge portion of that is made up of that watershed that I spoke about. And we can classify all of these different habitat types within this coverage map area. You can see that is a lot of different types of habitats, which means there's a lot of different types of organisms. There's a lot of different types of resources. There's a lot of different types of potential stressors and impacts that can be happening in these areas. And that requires the input from a lot of different types of scientists. I'm going to get into that a little bit, but one of the things I wanted an opportunity to share with you today that I don't frequently get a chance to if I'm talking at a conference or something like that about the NEP is a broader scope of work that the NEP has performed over the years and is performing right now. So I'm going to share with you a video that was put together for the management conference breakfast that was held this last December. So I apologize, there's some specific references that talk about the management conference because it was really speaking to that audience at the time. It's about a 12-minute video, so I'm just going to step away from here and let you guys watch this. But it's really talking about some of the projects and challenges and the way that the NEP has worked through them over the last few years.
It's been a tough 2 years through masks and virtual meetings, hurricanes and vaccinations. We kept calm and carried on. These challenges tested us, but we were undeterred. The Mobile Bay National Estuary Program's Management Conference showed true grit. True grit is perseverance. Our CCMP has garnered national attention for its watershed approach to environmental management. Through the perseverance of many of you in this room, we continue to develop and implement comprehensive watershed plans across coastal Alabama. Our collective progress is evident. 12 plans encompassing 24 watersheds are complete and being implemented. 3 plans encompassing 8 watersheds are in development. 3 plans encompassing 9 watersheds are being initiated, with 1 left to develop in 2022. This totals 19 plans addressing needs in 42 watersheds. The perseverance of management conference partners has been key to keeping all these plates spinning. Highlights of some of your great work demonstrate other qualities of true grit. True grit is determination. Through sheer determination, many different partners are implementing the 3 Mile Creek Watershed Management Plan. These efforts include the City of Mobile's continued development of the 3 Mile Creek Greenway, the NEP's and the City of Mobile's restoration of 12 Mile Creek, important for reducing sediment in the Langham Park Lake, eradication of the invasive island apple snail to facilitate restoration of the Langham Park Lake and protect downstream ecosystem health. In 2020, NEP and city park staffs and volunteers began a comprehensive effort to destroy garish pink egg masses from shoreline vegetation and infrastructure. By the end of the summer, with our collective energies depleted, the NEP contracted Osprey Initiative to continue this work. They joined with American Sportfish in 2021, and these collective efforts are showing great success. The City of Mobile is advancing efforts to dredge the lake to better manage stormwater and improve this community amenity. In their efforts to improve water quality, the Mobile area water and sewer system recently completed over $32 million worth of trunk line and stormwater attenuation tank infrastructure to expand storage capacity and reduce the number of sanitary sewer overflows. The result: 3 spills on 3 Mile Creek, says Mobile Baykeeper's Kate Kistler. When I started here 6 years ago, I could have walked to spots on 3 Mile that would have been roaring 12 hours after the rain stopped. And now we've got 3 spills on the whole 3 Mile Creek watershed, which is phenomenal. True grit is doggedness. No other environmental impact requires more doggedness than litter, a challenge not only in 3 Mile Creek, but across all coastal watersheds. In response, community cleanups have gained momentum and local government litter abatement efforts have improved dramatically. The city of Daphne employs full-time workers to remove trash from rights-of-way. The city of Fairhope, in partnership with Fairhope High School and the Weeks Bay Reserve, designed and installed educational storm drain markers to foster awareness. City of Foley personnel remove trash from rights-of-way, have installed a litter getter downstream of its main retail corridor, and is diverting stormwater into a constructed wetland to filter out litter. Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, and Dolphin Island have adopted ordinances requiring all personal items to be removed from the beach each night. And the city of Mobile has installed marine debris interceptors, is undertaking a major community awareness campaign, and uses litter getters and a boat to remove trash from waterways. The Dog River Clearwater Revival, along with PEP, Mobile Baykeeper, and the NEP, undertook several activities, leading to the creation of a comprehensive litter abatement plan for the Dog River watershed. From a study to strategically place litter getters, educating truck drivers about truck bed trash, and installing additional litter getters across the watershed, their efforts ran the gamut, even co-hosting with WKRG a Shark Tank-esque competition to develop a truck bed trash can. Statewide, Representative Margie Wilcox succeeded in passage of House Bill 500, enhancing penalties for littering. True grit is tenacity. Alabama's shorelines continue to shift in the face of rising seas, more intense storms, and human development. Through the tenacity of many, much of the Alabama coast is being enhanced through shoreline stabilization and marsh creation projects. To highlight a few, the Nature Conservancy's Lightning Point restoration, including creation of 28 acres of new salt marsh and installation of 1.5 miles of breakwater structures, protects 127 acres of Alabama's forever wild fishery nursery habitat. The state of Alabama's Point Out Pines project provides valuable protection of over 1 mile of eastern Mississippi Sound shoreline. Along the western shore of Mobile Bay, Mobile County, the NEP, and the city of Mobile are focused on stabilizing shorelines and restoring marsh from Dolphin Island Causeway to Helenwood Park, including restoration of 4 spits in the lower reaches of Fowl River. In Baldwin County, the city of Gulf Shores, in partnership with ADCNR, Auburn, the University of South Alabama, the Dolphin Island Sea Lab, and Mississippi State University, is implementing a comprehensive effort to enhance shorelines and improve water quality throughout Little Lagoon. Orange Beach is leading the Alabama Trustee Implementation Group, NOAA, the state, and the Nature Conservancy in enhancing the resilience of the entire Perdido Bay system. And the northern tip of Montague Island, one of the first post-spill restoration efforts, has now exceeded targets for faunal community and vegetation density, a statement of project success 1 year earlier than expected. Mississippi Alabama Sea Grant and Mississippi State University have created a living shoreline assistance program for private waterfront property owners, helping them collect data, design projects, and secure permits for resilient, habitat-friendly shorelines. True grit is confidence. Baldwin County demonstrated confidence in the management conference when they came to the NEP about a degraded stream in Marlow, depositing excessive sediment into Fish River. In support of implementing the Weeks Bay Watershed Plan, the state of Alabama, Baldwin County, and NIFWIF prioritized the Marlow Restoration Project, where construction will begin in 2022 as part of the Lower Weeks Bay Watershed Restoration Initiative. In addition to the Marlow project, 3 sites delivering sediment to the Magnolia River have been identified for restoration and are currently undergoing engineering and design. True grit is commitment. A shining example of commitment is the Dolive Watershed Restoration Program. Since 2010, stream restoration has been aggressively pursued to reduce sediments delivered to the seagrass beds of Dolive and Mobile Bays. The success of this program was due to the commitment of partners like ADEM, the Corps of Engineers, ALDOT, ADCNR, the NEP, Baldwin County, the cities of Daphne and Spanish Fort, the Lake Forest Property Owners Association, and our primary funder, the NIFWIF Gulf Environmental Benefit Fund. From 2012 through 2021, more than $15 million was invested in restoring more than 2 miles of degraded stream segments and over 75 acres of floodplains and wetlands. The Dolive Restoration Program stops more than 1,800 dump truck loads of sediment and 111 tons of nutrients from impacting downstream fishery habitats every year. It's hard to imagine the transformation. However, due to restoration success, in April 2020, ADEM removed Joe's Branch from the state's 303D list of impaired water bodies. This is the only coastal Alabama stream delisted by ADEM in response to restoration. As noteworthy is the state of Alabama and its partners protecting habitats across the Alabama coast. We applaud their commitment to conserving the unique habitats and biological diversity of coastal Alabama. These lands are critical to protecting access, shorelines, fish and wildlife, heritage and culture, environmental and community resilience, and water quality. True grit is investment. Implementation of the CCMP requires substantial investment. The NEP catalyzes investment with funding from the EPA, the state, Mobile and Baldwin counties, the cities of Mobile, Daphne, Foley, Fairhope, Spanish Fort, Dauphin Island, Saraland, and Gulf Shores. Other sources include NIFWIF, Restore, the EPA Gulf of Mexico Division, and the Alabama Power Foundation. But there is one more key component that drives all our successful efforts. True grit is passion. The hallmark of every national estuary program is its management conference, charged with restoring and protecting its estuary of national significance. Perseverance, determination, doggedness, tenacity, commitment, investment, and passion are the traits necessary for protecting Alabama for future generations. These are the traits of the Mobile Bay National Estuary Program Management Conference. Looking around this room, you'll see many of our well over 300 management conference members. Through technological disasters, hurricanes and tropical storms, and global pandemics, you have displayed the true grit in protecting the things we value most. We appreciate and value you. You are the Mobile Bay National Estuary Program.
Doesn't that make you want to join? Huh? She wish they were speaking to you? Okay. So that does a far better job of conveying the breadth and scope of some of the work that's being done at the NEP than I could, showing you a couple different slides here. So thanks for letting me show that to you. But like I said, I'm going to talk more about what I do at the NEP. Grab my water. So as I said in the previous slide leading up to that video, is that We have a lot of different habitat types down here. We have a lot of different projects that are going on. We have a lot of different priorities for management in this area, and that requires a diverse number of scientists with different backgrounds and experiences. And that's where the SAC comes in, the Science Advisory Committee. Starting back in 2012 is when they first started really pushing through a new CCNP that was written 10 years ago, that we've been basically operating under for the last 10 years, even though they're on a 5-year cycle. Basically at 2018, they just re-upped the 2013 version of the CCNP. But one of the ways they got there was recognizing that they needed to gather a collective amount of information from the members of the Science Advisory Committee in order to prioritize and target some of the things that they should be focusing on. And there needed to be some kind of uniform way for the members of the NEP to be able to get that information out of the SAC in some kind of comprehensive way that non-scientists could look at and say, like, okay, this is where we should be focusing our efforts. And this is where we started developing the stressor evaluation matrix. But as you can imagine, having all those different types of voices out there can be a challenge to gather that information, which is what made the stressor evaluation matrix that much more valuable. So I'm going to go over it a little bit, the original structure of the stressor matrix, some of the results that we had in 2012 and our efforts at readdressing it as we head into the next CCNP. So in 2012, the original matrix as it was put together had 12 habitats, 12 ecosystem services, and 13 potential stressors. So imagine a great big spreadsheet with a bunch of habitats and ecosystem services associated with each habitat and a bunch of stressors going across the top. I'm going to show you a couple examples, but it's a massive spreadsheet with a lot of different squares in it. Some of you have had the opportunity to participate in the matrix. Dottie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So back in 2012, when this was done, the SAC members were asked to score each of these squares that they had professional experience with. They weren't asked to answer questions that they knew nothing about. So if they didn't know anything, it was left to 0. But those things that they did have experience with, they were asked to gauge that interaction based on their professional opinions on a score from 0 to 3. 0 meaning that that particular interaction, I don't expect to have any particular impact. 3 being like, holy smokes, yeah, this is something we really need to focus on, because if these two things come together, or when these things come together, it means bad things for that habitat and that ecosystem service. When there were differences of opinions, because sometimes there were, you know, if there was somebody put a 0 and somebody put a 3 for the exact same type of interaction, then there were discussions that led from there, because we're all scientists and we have different opinions, and sometimes we bump heads on issues, but generally speaking, we're able to come together and form consensus on some of those issues. If consensus wasn't possible, then it just increased the error bars around our estimations of that individual impact, and you'll see some of that when I get to that. At the time it was determined, we needed at least 7 interactions or 7 responses to a given interaction in order to make it statistically workable. We're still debating whether or not we need a full 7 there, but we had 29 different scientists engaged with the matrix in 2012. And this is a snippet, and I just chose freshwater wetlands here as an example. So this is averages of all of the responses. At the time, it was considered any response value on average that was greater than 2. So remember, 3 being the most extreme, 0 being not much at all, was considered something that maybe needed to have focus placed on it. So for these freshwater wetlands, you can see these 4 stressors were considered the highest priority. So that's dredge and fill, habitat fragmentation, land use changes, and sedimentation. And you can see the different ecosystem services that were associated with this one particular habitat. So imagine 12 habitats, this all over again. So it's quite big, like I said. And this is, you know, like I said, responses from 29 different individuals that are out there to reach these averages. So across all those different 12 habitats and et cetera, we get to this highest prioritized areas. So freshwater wetlands, the ones I just showed you right there, intertidal marshes and flats, river streams, and riparian buffers were the ones that came out ahead in that particular response matrix from the SAC. Those were the ones that the SAC was saying, like, hey, these are the habitats that are probably going to need the highest priority. It's not that surprising. We live in a massive estuary with a lot of water out there. A lot of these are going to be water-based habitats and their associated bayous and streams and creeks, et cetera. And then you see the ecosystem services that were considered to be either the most stressed or the most likely to be stressed. For that freshwater wetlands, it was nesting for shorebirds and turtles, biodiversity, wildlife, and fisheries. And those land use changes that I pointed out. And those go back into those values that you heard about in the video that I talked about earlier, which is access, fish, heritage and culture, resilience, and water quality. So these habitats here are the ones that ended up rising to the front in the CCMP, and those are the ones that the NEP has spent the last 10 years really focusing on addressing. You saw a lot from those restoration activities, but a key focus has been looking at sedimentation, erosion and sedimentation. That's one thing that came up across multiple habitats. You can see them all through here as we've got, you know, dredge and fill and sedimentation, et cetera, across all of these different habitat types. And so that was something that they knew. Big restoration efforts, stopping some of those down cutting and erosion in some of our coastal streams, we knew would reduce sediment into our water bodies. But that was 10 years ago. We're starting a new era. So, new matrix, much like the old matrix. We did develop a new matrix that has additional habitats. It has 9 different ecosystem services. It has, I think, 8 different additional stressors. But we wanted to actually redo the exact same 2012 effort in order to see if there were any shifts and changes over time. We're scientists here. We appreciate that replication to be able to make these cross comparisons against different cohorts that were the SAC. Not only has the SAC had changeover and shifting, but we also know that there's been different challenges and stresses down here in our 2 coastal counties that might mean we need to reprioritize some different things. And there's been a lot of restoration work that's been done over the last 10 years. So it might mean some of these things that came to the forefront before maybe not as strongly this time. So this is again looking at freshwater wetlands, those same exact ecosystem services, but those cells that are highlighted now that I've got them in blue with the little orange squares around them, you don't see that dredge and fill as much or that sedimentation coming to the forefront as much, but we still see fragmentation and land use change. It's really not that surprising when we know that Baldwin County is one of the fastest growing counties in the entire US. We've got a lot of development. It doesn't take long, you know, driving down the dip, seeing different places where it's being ripped up, new construction, things like that. We all know as scientists that those are going to have impacts on our habitats and our resources and the things that we care about, those values that we spoke about. So I'm just going to show you a couple sciencey graphs since this is supposed to be a science talk and I am a scientist and we're not just going to talk about the words behind these things. So this is the data comparing between the 2012 effort and the well, it started in 21, that's why it says 21 up there, and that's 22 right now. Right now, we've had 19 responses to our matrix that are from a wide variety of background. As I said, we had 29 responses for the 2012, so it's a little bit different there. But you can see where the dredging and filling falls away here. So on the graph, it's kind of like this purpley brown color on the left-hand side of both of those graphs kind of drops away in the 21 version. That we also see that dredging and filling, I guess that's the kind of browny one. And then the sedimentation also is the more brown one that's kind of, I guess it's 5 from the right-hand side on both those graphs where those things kind of drop off. But you can also see error bars associated around those things. And we know it's because we have a variety of voices out there and people think different things are going to have differential impacts. But this also happens to be just looking at freshwater wetlands, all these different types of potential stressors, but it's averaged across all of those different ecosystem services because that was the easiest way to graph these things out. But if you look at a different habitat, so here's intertidal marshes and flats, again, one of those prioritized habitats within 2012. Again, you see some slightly different opinions that maybe dredging and filling isn't such a thing, maybe sediment isn't as high of a concern. We do see land use changes still coming in there quite strongly, but we see a little bit increase in the concerns about climate variability. That's that kind of turquoise bar 3 from the right-hand side there. So we're seeing some shifts in maybe the focus of not only the scientific community that we have within the SAC, but maybe because those actually are different stresses now in different ways that we need to shift our focus at the NEP. But we can also look at it from different ways. So this is just averaging across all of the different habitats, but just really narrowing down and looking at one ecosystem service here of biodiversity. Again, with those exact same color bars, those exact same potential stressors. You can see compared to 2012, in 21, much more of those scientists that contributed to the matrix saw land use change as being a priority rather than some of these other ones, even above like habitat fragmentation, which was rated fairly high before, or invasive species, which seems to be less so now. Again, it might be because we're doing a really great job of managing some of these other things that had been concerns in 2012, or it might be just a shifting focus of the population that we have on our Science Advisory Committee, which is why we are always looking for increased diversity and additional voices. So this is the pitch. This is where you come in. If you're willing, you can either contact me directly, or you can bust out your phone right now, hit that QR. It'll bring you to a survey that allows you to self-identify what your experiences are, where your background is in, your levels of expertise in a given area for all those different habitats, all those different ecosystem services, and all of those different stressors. And once you fill that out, you have the option at the bottom of saying like, yep, I'd like to participate in the stressor evaluation matrix, and I will send you a perfectly personalized version of the matrix, so you don't even have to look at that massive thing. It's only going to focus on those areas that you have self-identified as being something that you know something about. I don't see phones out, which is a little bit discouraging, but please, I ask that you reach out to me if you're interested, or if you're interested in participating in the SAC, or you want to know more about it. Our next quarterly meeting happens to be next Friday. We're kind of excited. We've been all virtual for all of COVID. So you imagine a Zoom with 40 to 80 people on board. I imagine a number of you have been to those types of meetings. Can be a little bit less productive, but we are having a hybrid meeting. So we're still going to have an online option, but we are going to be out at 5 Rivers. If you're interested in coming, that's my email. Please contact me. I'd be happy to put you on the list. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Leave that up. I'm going to take it so that
Okay, good.
I get a personalized one.
Yeah.
That spreadsheet.
You need to do the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, you can. There's the fun thing about it is that even if you don't, if I give you the personalized one, but I just like hide and filter out the other ones. So if you want to like cook your noodle a little bit, you just like unfilter and go, the options are endless. And as I said, we have a what I call mega matrix that we created for 2021 that really brought in some additional, some of those value related ecosystem services that we talk about, culture and value and access and things like that. And that really hadn't been captured in the first one, and really drilling down on some of those stressors. One of the things we had in the first matrix that said climate variability. And then a lot of our scientists were like, well, what do you mean by that? Because are you talking about temperature? Are you talking about differential rainfall? Like, what do you mean by climate variability? So we broke those types of things out. And so it's a little bit more in depth. It's even more mind-blowing. It's extra mind-blowing for me because I'm the one that's got to crunch all the numbers and try to make sense out of them, and then deliver that information to Roberta and the rest of the staff in order to start making sense out of it. But we're going to be spending the next several months drilling down into some of those questions, pushing out into the community to get answers to some of those areas that maybe we don't have good representation on. For instance, right now, if you or any of your colleagues work in riparian areas, or maybe pine savannas or maritime forests or anything like that, we're a little weak in those areas. Most of the folks that have been contributing, are estuarine scientists, for example. So getting good representation allows a more robust analysis, as y'all know, that's how stats work. So with that, yeah, go ahead, Lee.
You go back to your matrix. So
Yeah.
when you showed the one for 2012, everything that was highlighted was over 2. And when you showed the one for 2021, there were things highlighted that were less than 2.
Yeah, that's a way to nail that one. So for this one, when I was pulling these out, because we got a little bit lower representation, I was like, well, let's just start looking at stuff that maybe is over like 1.5. People are saying it's a concern. Maybe we don't have enough numbers in there to say it's a high concern, but I wanted to start focusing on, it was like, okay, let's still look at some of these areas that maybe should be flagged out a little bit, but let's lower my threshold of concern for a little bit. So good eye on that one, but yeah, that's why those ones, you'll see a bunch of 1.6s in there. So 1.5s didn't get it, but if you hit a 1.6 or really a 1.55 or above, you would get flagged.
I noticed a bit of a focus on freshwater wetlands. Is MBNEP aware of the proposed changes to Dolphin Island's wetland mitigation or wetland? They basically seem to be on the slate to develop the remaining wetland lots on the island.
So I know that the NEP is always involved in one of the partners in some of these discussions that are going on in here. Roberta, are you still online if you wanted to speak that at all?
I am aware of what's going on. I don't know if I agree with you that they're slated to develop all the remaining wetlands. I know that there's a part of the island governmental body that might feel that way, but there are several that are decidedly opposed to any other wetland development. We are in the process of doing a watershed management plan and working closely with Jeff Collier and a couple of the town councilmen. They are also working with Barry Vitor. There are some limits to what they can and cannot do, but we are working closely with them to impress upon them that they basically need to have a moratorium on any development in wetlands. We don't have a lot of federal protection of those wetlands because the lots are small.
Right.
But we're very aware, and there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things happening on Dolphin Island right now that we're struggling with. Even though there's 50 different funded projects going on across Dolphin Island right now, they're still struggling with the same development issues that they have since, frankly, I've been there, and we moved there in 2000. And
I'm glad you're on it.
Well, we're paying attention.
no promises, but we're working hard to really impress upon the leadership that now is the time for bold moves.
Yeah. Do you have more? I might get in touch with you after this just for some more detailed information about.
Please do. I'll actually give you the name of our the lead consultant working on the watershed management plan, but I'd be happy to discuss Dolphin Island. It's not going to be a pretty conversation, but I'd be happy to discuss it with you.
I'm planning to go to the meeting. Yeah.
Good. Well, and that's what we want to hear though too, is that, you know, when you do have an opinion, you have a voice. When there are these meetings, we encourage you to attend. You know, there are a number of different, while we're going through the watershed management planning process for some of these different ones you saw in the video, there's little different colored polygons up there. You know, there are periodically outreach meetings, community engagement meetings, and we encourage people to attend because that's where your voice can be heard and you can contribute. But you can also join the SAC and contribute your opinion there, and, you know, be able to have that kind of more mainline influence into some of the areas that you think that we should be prioritizing through those conversations.